Welcome to Women in the Music Industry, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in an industry that has long been dominated by men. I'm your host, Rob Wells, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this empowering journey. Each episode of this podcast will be dedicated to exploring the inspiring stories, accomplishments, and struggles of the extraordinary women who have defied the odds and made waves in the music business. Together, we'll delve into the journeys of female artists, songwriters, producers, musicians, managers, executives, and all those who have helped play a pivotal role behind the scenes. We'll uncover the stories that deserve to be heard, as well as celebrate the triumphs, challenges, and unique perspectives that women bring to the music industry. Whether you're a fan of music, an aspiring artist, or simply curious about the inner workings of the music business, this podcast will offer a valuable perspective. Together, we'll celebrate the power of music and the strength of these inspiring women. So join us as we amplify their voices and together pave the way for a future where women in the music business are no longer the exception, but the rule. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Songwriter's Piano, an easy-to-use app for songwriters and lyricists to use when coming up with song ideas when there's no instrument around or nobody to play one. With the Songwriter's Piano, one can easily play commonly used pop songwriting chord sequences at the touch of a screen, in any key, in 3 different chord variations, all played on a gorgeously recorded grand piano. Download the Songwriter's Piano by Play Like Me apps today, found on both iOS and Android stores everywhere. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Women in the Music Industry. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome to the show. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. So my very special guest today is none other than Morgan Lander, lead singer and guitarist of the amazing all-female metal band Kittie. Welcome. Yeah, this is great. Nice to meet you, Morgan.
Nice to meet you as well.
Cool. So with a career spanning 3 decades, Kittie has pioneered the metal genre and are arguably one of the most influential early torchbearers for female representation and acceptance in modern metal music. Formed in 1996 by sisters Morgan and Mercedes Lander, Kittie has 6 full-length albums and 1 gold record in the US under their belt, with over not 1, but 2 million in tangible album sales during their career and tens of millions of streams annually. That's incredible. Their career-spanning documentary, Kittie Origins / Evolutions, is available on Prime and was released in 2018 to critical acclaim. The band has recently become active again, yes, after a 10-year hiatus, and plans for new music are forthcoming. I want to know all.
How ominous.
Yes, should have like a muhahaha after that or something.
Yeah.
Morgan Lander, we are not worthy to have you. This is so cool.
Thank you. Cool. Thank you so much. I wrote that bio. we don't have official bios, so I was just like, oh, write something up.
You didn't even try to do a chat GPT
bio? God, no. Oh, could you imagine what they would come up with? Like,
amazing. It'd be incredible.
With the AI.
Yeah, I think you can put in like certain elements in there or something like that, make sure that you mention this part and that part and then see what it spits out. But usually it's not as good as what you can do yourself.
Yeah, I think, I'd give it a try. But I don't know, like the AI kind of like it's creepy, right? Like it can get things right, but then it can also get them very wrong. And then if you don't proofread, then you're sending out weird stuff into the world. All of those things are true. It's really cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. I love it. I mean, it's a pretty great straight to the point bio, but it is like each thing that's in there, there's a lot to unpack in each element in there, like 6 full-length albums. That's crazy. That's amazing. And you have a gold record in the US. You have 2 million in sales. You have tens of millions of streams annually. These are not easy things to achieve, but it speaks volumes of you, your band, and fans that you have all around the world that are continuing to grow over the years. Absolutely incredible.
It's been bewildering, especially the last 10 years, I think, have been really, I don't want to say strange, but yeah, they've been really strange. We, like all of a sudden, there just seems to be a lot more interest and listenership with Kittie, in the last, say, like 5 or so years than I feel like there, even historically had been. Like I know it's hard to compare the age of streaming to the age of like when people actually bought albums, but it seems like there's more people listening than ever before, and to me that is like still a very hard thing to grasp. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, I
It's
think
cool.
the music that you're making, the kind of music that you're making, it never gets tired. It never seems like it's dated. It still feels like it's very fresh. And it's so the ability to attract new listeners would be, I think, a lot easier than, for example, if you're doing something that's pop based and you had albums that were coming out in the late 90s, like those would sound horribly dated. Whereas, metal kind of sounds like metal now. I mean, there's not that much of a difference. I mean, maybe technology has made mixes sound, that much more incredible and everything. But the core root of it is still guitars, drums, amazing vocals, just the musicality and everything. So I'm sure you're just attracting all sorts of new fans every year that they're discovering you.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, the first album that we put out is our most celebrated and popular as well. And I don't think that you can put an expiration date on Teen Angst as well.
Yeah.
It's something that the raw emotion that album represents and who we were at that time and what the music represents is something that I think is sort of undeniable. And, while I think that we've evolved into a really incredible band and a much more cohesive band. There is something kind of magic about the sort of untamed wildness of what that album is and represents.
Incredible. I want to talk about that album, but I also want to talk about what led up to all that. How did you get into this band? How did you find people to be in a band with? How did you find a love for music? Like, let's just sort of like take the clock back a little bit and do a time travel trip into the past and find out how you went from point A to point B.
For sure. It feels like it's been a long trip, and it kind of has. Kittie's like, what is it now? We're in our, we formed in 1996, so we're coming up on 30 years now.
And where are you from?
Well, I was born in Edmonton. Both my sister and I were born in Edmonton, and we lived in Brampton, Ontario for the early and formative years of our lives. Moved to London, Ontario, I think in like 1994. And that's sort of when who I was sort of changed. Like, I can only speak from my own personal perspective, but like, I think I was a different person when we moved for, a dad's job type thing. So it was like all of my friends, all of my stability, all of the people and situations in school and everything that I had known were 2.5 hours away. And like, that doesn't seem like that far now, but like when you're a kid, that's like, your whole world has been completely huge upheaval going on. So that sort of started me on the path to the darkness. So I mean, I guess I don't come up from a musical family. Like, neither of my parents are musicians. Contrary to all of the horrible rumors and things, my dad was not a music executive, and he didn't buy our record contract or anything like that. And so I stumbled upon music the old-fashioned way, just wanting to like explore, to experiment, feeling like I maybe had things to say. And like, my parents were like into music, though. It's not like it was like a weird household where nobody listens. You can't trust anybody that doesn't listen to music. I've come to, I don't like music. Like, you have a choice. Like, that's weird. But
can you imagine a life without music?
Yeah, no, I absolutely couldn't. I feel like it is such a part of my everyday life. Like, I'm singing dumb songs about doing the dishes or to the cats, it's like, every day there's a little creation, and I think that it would be a really sad and depressing world without it. But yeah, so like, I mean, Mercedes and I grew up listening to a lot of classic rock stuff, and my parents, they're pretty cool, and they're pretty cool about, letting us, listen to music that maybe, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't have been listening to. Like I'm pretty sure I saw like the damn Yankees play like in the early 90s, probably late 80s. Like I saw some pretty weird shows. Yeah, like we just really wanted to try something new. And when you're young and your parents are like, well, I take piano lessons, learn some discipline or whatever. I did that for a while, and I was horribly bored with it. And I was like, could I try guitar? And I started off on acoustic guitar, and sort of learned the basics, like the Hal Johnson. Is that what it is? Hal Johnson, is that his name? The book? I don't know. It's like
Hal Leonard.
Like, Hal Leonard. That's what it is. Hal Johnson
yes.
is somebody else. He's the body break guy. Sorry. Another magic Canadian thing there.
That's
Hal
right.
Leonard. Anyways, that sort of thing. And acoustic was also very, very boring to me. And at that time, I started to kind of get, a little bit more into my darkness. And then, sort of discovering and listening to like rock bands, like of my own era. Discovering bands like Korn, like in the early to mid 90s, Deftones, Marilyn Manson, Silverchair, like all kinds of stuff. And then being like, you know what? I like, this is cool. I want to be able to do this too. And so, it was like, oh, time for electric guitar lessons. And I did that for a little while. And I had a cool guitar teacher who, had like, I think he had like a Sepultura tattoo. So I was like, okay, this guy knows what's up. And I was like, show me some cool riffs. And from there, it was kind of like, all right. But I think back then, for me, it feels like the driving force behind everything was, like we wanted to have fun. We wanted to learn. But we felt unstoppable. We felt like no one could tell us what to do. There weren't a lot of our peers, who were like 12, 13, 14 years old, who were women that were in bands or like forming bands. Everybody, there's tons of high school bands, everybody kind of gets together and makes a band.
Or even honestly, like listening to rock. I mean, it's I'm sure you had a lot of people that you knew that were not listening to rock and probably listening to the pop music of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like prior to discovering the darkness, I was one of them as well. My life could have actually turned out very different, I think, if I didn't have some of those key things in life that sort of steered me in a different direction. But
just curious, what do you think it was about rock that drew you to it? Like, was it lyrically that you loved the places that they would go? Like you say, you're drawn to the darkness. Was it more like the darker subject matter, or was it the tones of the guitar? Was it the power of the music? Was it all of the above?
Well, yeah, like I feel like there's a certain raw emotion to a lot of rock music. Like growing up with like classic rock, it's a little bit different. Like my parents loved like Van Halen, and like listening to like, like things like that David Lee Roth is singing about are very inappropriate for like an 8-year-old, but It didn't matter. Right. It was like, the emotions and like the things, the feelings that you sort of get when you're listening to a song that sort of draw you in. And for me, like there is music that like I have always felt like I really feel something when I listen to it, and it's a hard like feeling to like, I know it's just like, oh, you get certain emotions or whatever, but it's more than that. It's like you actually physically feel something. And there are some bands and some songs and that sort of thing that really create a reaction that is like, I can't explain it. And a lot of it is more dark and sort of depressing, I guess, in nature. It causes you to sort of reflect and maybe bring up things that like you wouldn't necessarily think about just on the everyday, or feel things in a certain way that only music can, evoke. It's a weird thing. But yeah, like I think there's a lot of dark stuff in music, and those feelings that really just, you feel it like on a cellular level, and you need it.
Yeah, I'm the same way too. Like I love it when music sort of pushes the boundaries a little bit. When I'm starting to feel things that aren't just sugary sweet, where it's talking about the real things that you go through in life, and sometimes the dark stuff that you go through in life as well. And musically, I love it too when things push the boundaries, and it's not just what you would expect to normally hear every single day. It's
Absolutely.
There is something definitely there that draws you towards that. But it's interesting that you found that at the age of 12 and were really drawn to that. So were these instruments that you just normally had at home? Like, were acoustic guitars, electric guitars, were they just lying around, or you went out and bought these yourself?
No, well, so like for the like lesson stuff, it was like, oh, you go to the like shop and you rent it or whatever for your like lessons. And I didn't get an actual electric guitar for myself uh, until I think I was like I think it was like 13 or 14.
Okay.
And it was a like Strat copy. I think the brand was like El Degas or something like that.
Nice.
And I think my dad bought it for me from a pawn shop for like $50 or whatever.
Whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was like, hey, like your very first electric guitar. It was like the action was so high on it. It was terrible. But it was like, wow, this is like mine. This is my guitar. And I really went for it. My fingers were hurting. Yeah, I just wanted to shred. I wanted to learn. I wanted to emote. I wanted to feel and create things that, that were in the same vein as the things that other musicians make me feel.
Were you learning sort of like cover songs? Like, were you playing along with the songs that you loved, the bands that you loved at this time, or were you flat out just like creating your own music straight away?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. My sister and I have always had a little bit of a strange relationship with like creating music in that way. Like when we were really young, before any like music lessons, or when we were doing piano, like really young, like we had a piano, and we were playing around, and we would write songs together on this piano. And I don't even know if I should say it because it's so ridiculous, but like when we were like, I don't know, 6 or 7, 8 years old, we were like writing songs, and we called ourselves the Beautiful Bitches. And I'm not kidding. Like Mercedes and I have always been this. And it's just something that we didn't realize at the time. We were
great.
Writing rock songs
on the piano.
When we were really, really young.
How close are you in age with your sister?
2 years. She's 2 years younger than I am.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, I mean, at around the time that sort of Kittie was forming, I was, learning cover songs. I was also kind of just like toying around with my own ideas at the time. I believe, like, I remember being maybe too shy to like share or anything. So like, I would write stuff down and like quietly like play in my room and stuff. And around the time that electric guitar was sort of happening for me, Mercedes also was like, can I take drum lessons? And so it just so happened that, when you have those two elements, like you have the skeleton of a band, right?
Absolutely.
It's all there. And
it's the White Stripes, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we started playing together, learning together, doing covers and stuff. And like, essentially that's how Kittie was formed. Mercedes had met Fallon, who was a friend from school. I guess she was in gymnastics class with her. This was even before they went to high school. And Fallon was also sort of into, the same music that we were. She's in between the age of Mercedes and I. So she's a year younger than I am, a year older than Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she was really into a lot of the same bands and the same, vibe or whatever. And so Mercedes invited Fallon over to play with her. And I was sort of like, away from that. But then it was like, well, why don't you come down to the basement and play with us? And that's how Kittie was born.
And how old were you at this point?
I was 14.
14.
Mm-hmm. And Mercedes was 12.
And you're playing original songs, or are you just jamming at this point, the three of you in the basement, just seeing how it sounds, putting you all together?
Yeah, like when we first jammed, it was just like, oh, let's do some cover stuff, or like, let me show you this idea that I have. Like right away, it felt like we were just really, really excited. And so we just sort of got to work, and like it just ended up that like every weekend we were together and playing and writing, and just, yeah, it was all very natural.
Was word starting to spread around the school that you formed this band, that you're getting together on the weekends?
Well, sort of. Like, I mean, we were always kind of like the scary rock kids or whatever. But we did a lot of stuff just on our own, like at home. We wanted to make sure that, we had, the right, songs and stuff like that. But when we were finally like, okay, well, we're ready to like do a show, it was like a battle of the bands that was happening at a local club in London, Call the Office, actually, if you're familiar.
I know Call the Office.
Yeah,
I played Call the Office way back in the day. Yeah.
Anybody that's been to London probably has. It's a very storied and historical venue that's had hundreds of incredible bands that have gone on to do amazing things. Like even Radiohead
doesn't exist anymore, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the pandemic, I think, was sort of a catalyst for that, which is really, really sad. But yeah, so our very first show was at Call the Office. It was a battle of the bands. Before that, I think we actually did two like high school talent show type things, and one of them was at my high school, and it did not go well. It was like we went up there and we played, and then we were just doing Kittie songs. We had a few of our own songs at the time, and I think that was like 1997, and the principal and some of the other teachers like pulled the plug on us, and they were like, oh, you, like, we were concerned for your health because I was, I guess, screaming up there or whatever. And they were like, they pulled the plug because they thought it was, essentially it boiled down to like, oh, like, I suppose it was inappropriate for girls to be performing in that way, which is a little strange. Mind you, there was also like girls that were like lip syncing the Spice Girls and like dancing on tables and stuff. So is that appropriate as well? Like, yeah, I mean, come on, like if you're going to allow one, you should be allowing the other. Anyways, that lit a fire under my ass for sure. And I am embittered to this day because of that. No, it's just like, it's like little things like that all along the way sort of put things into perspective about perceptions and what's your place supposed to be in society? What's your place supposed to be in music? Who are you supposed to be? What's the expectation? And in my life, I've found that trying to do the opposite of that is has worked out all right for me, I think. I think even just Kittie and our existence, it's defiant, right? It defies a lot of things. And back then, especially being as young as we were, and having, authority figures and people that are supposed to be, supportive and like whatever, like sort of smacking down your hopes and dreams. It was tough. It was weird.
It's so funny what happens with teachers. I was told by my guidance counselor to not follow music because I would be
really?
I would be quote unquote living on the streets for the rest of my life. And
wow.
A great follow up to that story is that later on, many years, I was asked to come back to the school where they presented me with a Hall of Honor award for being in the music industry. And so now I'm part of this hallway that features people that have rocked their careers, you know, and
Yeah.
whatever career it is. And but it's so that's so crazy that they pulled the plug, that they didn't
Mhm.
see that there's like pure creativity going on here, or like even the music teacher didn't stand up for you or anything. It's
Yeah. Well, it's yeah, like I feel like even if it wasn't good, like I can't imagine it was like amazing or whatever, but you know, we were trying, we were expressing ourselves, we were up there being creative, and those are things that should be encouraged and cultivated in
oh yeah,
children.
yeah,
And you know, not everyone has an experience like you or I where someone says, don't do that, and then you don't, you know, or like for our experience, like they say, don't do that, and then you do, and you are able to come back and they're, they can sheepishly say, oh, you know, we're sorry, or, you know, like, look at the achievements that you've done. Like not everybody has that experience because there are people that would be told not to, and then they don't. And
and
then,
listen, yeah,
yeah. And then who knows, what could have been, um, if you had just been supportive and tried to cultivate those things. You know, not everybody that plays in a high school band ends up, you know, in the music industry.
yeah.
We certainly were really, really lucky in that way. But I think when you're young and you're expressing yourself, it's important to just let them do it, you know?
Oh, for sure. I
Mm-hmm.
just heard this morning a podcast where Rick Rubin is interviewing Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Mm-hmm.
and Arnold is just saying for every stage of his life, people were telling him, "Don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have this dream of bodybuilding." And then he ended up just having his dream and saying, "Forget it. I'm going to follow anyways," and became the
Mm-hmm.
youngest bodybuilder, Mr. Universe champion ever.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Yeah.
wanted to be a movie star, and they said, "You can't be in movies." And he ended up being a blockbuster movie star. And then he wanted to get into politics, and everyone said, "You can't be the governor of California." And he ended up
Mm-hmm.
being the governor of California. It's just so
Yeah.
funny how people just try to hold people back, you know?
Yeah,
From,
and everyone should be as encouraged as I feel like um, we were, you know, with our friends and parents and stuff like that for with the band, because not everybody has that. But sometimes though, that is the catalyst, the thing that sort of lights the fire to like make you want to do it more and
yes.
be more defiant and break those rules, because if they are telling you you can't, like usually that's like you should.
So you had this experience at the high school. They pulled the plug, and that lit
Mm-hmm.
your fire like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Probably set off a bomb within you. And
Mm-hmm.
just what happened next? Tell me the next stages.
Well, I mean, that was one of our earliest show experiences that we had. We played the Battle of the Bands. We did not win. It was not some like, high school movie scenario where we won or whatever, but it was our very first taste of being on stage. I recall very distinctly being very nervous. Um, Being on stage and like speaking to people and stuff is actually something that's been uh, a big challenge for me. I know that sounds weird. I don't get anxiety anymore in front of an audience, but like if I were to like stand up and speak in front of like 20 people, I'd be shitting my pants. Like I absolutely could not do it without like breaking out in a sweat and stammering and that kind of thing. Um, but there's something about like having a guitar and a microphone in front of you. It's like it's a barrier in front of the 20,000 people that are out there type of thing.
Yes, it's
It's weird.
almost like a shield or something.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely the first show experience, like it went okay. I remember the owner of Call the Office at the time, like calling his friends to like come and see the band because I guess it was like a thing where it was like, oh, girls doing heavy music. It wasn't something that happened very often. So there was a little bit of talk, and that's cool. We made some friends in other bands that night, and we ended up playing more shows. Around that time, like that, it got us started, but then within that next year, we started to play a lot more shows. We were playing shows outside of London, a lot of local stuff as well. We played Toronto. We've played in Detroit. Yeah, we had a lot of every weekend we'd try to do a little something here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And the next really big milestone, I guess, would be the Canadian Music Week showcases and stuff that we did, which was really the thing that, started the snowball of where we are today. Like,
where did you play at CMW?
We actually played a few different places. We played the Reverb. We also played the Rivoli, I believe. And I want to say there might have been one more, but I definitely know that there was at least those two.
Those are great venues. Great venues.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, it's like industry people are meeting in Toronto and whatnot as well. We were staying at the hotel where the sort of center of everything is, which is it the Westin Harbor Castle? Is that
it is now? I think it was the Sheraton for a while.
Yeah, I think probably back then it was the Sheraton.
Okay.
This was 99, March of 99. So yeah, we played Canadian Music Week and we were just being our usual brash and obnoxious selves. That's just how we rolled. We were mouthy and confident and boisterous. Like wherever we went, the four of us, we were, we were causing a stir because, we had the attitude that went with the music and everything as well.
Oh, did I hear? How did you get a fourth member?
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. I forgot to sort of add into that. So yeah, it was before we played our first shows. Obviously, you need a bass player. We had a few other friends kind of come in and out, but it ended up that another girl, her name was Tanya, and she was going to school with Mercedes and Fallon, was also a musician, and her dad was a musician, so she actually was, very competent with guitar and everything like that. And we were like, well, we need a bass player, always asking the guitar player to play bass. So she ended up joining the band, and we were a four-piece. So those first shows that we did, like Tanya was a part of that as well. The high school stuff, those shows. We did the Canadian Music Week situation, and it was wild. We made a lot of friends. We actually met up with a guy called Jason Weiner, and he was at the time working for a small New York record label called NG Records. And he walked through the lobby, and he was wearing this like fuzzy hat, and we started harassing him and calling him Jamiroquai. It was a very at the time thing, Jamiroquai and his big fuzzy hat.
Yeah.
And so we were harassing him, and just like kind of being funny and whatnot. And he was there for the Canadian Music Week. They were doing a showcase with a few of their sort of punk bands that they had in Toronto, and they invited us to come out, and we invited him to come and watch us play. And that's kind of just how things happened. In that period of time, we did record like a 6-song. Actually, I think there was a 3-song demo. And then around the time that Canadian Music Week was happening, we had also done another 6-song demo. So we had like music that we could share and stuff like that. After meeting Jason, it was like, okay, well, they're interested in, signing us and stuff like that. And, mind you, NG Records, like they're a really small label. They had a couple of small punk releases and stuff like that. And so it was sort of like, this is going to be our summer project. Like, we'll, sign and do an album and then go back to school in the fall and that'll be it. And so that whole like summer and everything is a little bit hazy for me, but we had already done the 6-song EP, and that was something that we were going to use as our album. And then things started to happen with NG Records, and it everything kind of turned out in this wild sort of way. So Emacs Studios, which still is in London today, run by Rob Nation, has been there for decades in the East End of London, and that's where we did our 6-song EP. And
was it self-produced?
Yeah. So it was us and like a friend of ours from the music scene. His name's Gordy, and he played in a band called Blue Bones. I guess they were like a 80s, early 90s, like kind of rock band or whatever. They had some like Canadian Ontario success in the early days of Much Music. So he was there sort of producing and whatnot. But around that time, we obviously were like discussing and talking about, a new album for NG Records, because the 6-song, they weren't going to put that out. And it so happened that Rob Nation is friends with Garth Richardson. They go way back. And it was a weird situation where it was like, I'll make a phone call and see if my friend wants to like produce this album. And like, I mean, like, come on, like Garth Richardson is like, it was the biggest deal that we could have even.
He's
like,
legendary.
Yeah. Like, and then here we are, this little kitty. He agreed to do it. We did the album with Garth Richardson.
That's amazing.
I know, which still blows my mind. And like, at the time, it's not like we had like a lot of money. We had a small label and everything like that. So, Garth was really super cool. He did it for points and everything like that. We spent 10 days with Garth at Emacs Studios. And he like trucked in a bunch of all of his real cool gear. And like, we had like Fender Squier guitars and like, just like not great equipment, it was a really wild experience. And we did that, and unbelievable stuff. Right.
And that was the album for NG Records.
Yep. And that was Spit. 10 days at EMAC there, in between tracking and everything, we were doing our homework and all of the necessary things.
You're what, grade 11 at this point?
That was 99. Yeah, like the summer-ish of June, maybe July of 99. So yeah, it was like I was 17.
Wow.
And my sister was 15.
And you're getting a record produced by Garth Richardson for a record label in New York. That's so incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I have no explanation. Like everything has just been, what a wild life, right? Like, and at the time, a lot of these things, when you're young and you're sort of in the center of all of this, the full scope of what's actually happening doesn't really dawn on you. I feel like youth is wasted on the young. Right. That's such an old person thing to say, but the magnitude of everything that we were doing at the time and what was to come, and even just the fact that like Garth was willing to do the album, and we were working with this producer who had done so many incredible albums and was already like legendary at the time, that he was doing the album with Kittie, and that all of this was happening. Like it just didn't register. I think if I had the same mindset that I do now back then, I probably would be a little bit more bewildered about everything. But yeah, when you're that young and things are just happening, you're just like, all right, like I'm tracking guitars and then I'm doing my math homework. It was just like, this is life. It's all strange.
Were you starting to feel though that this was not going to be just for the summer, that this was starting to pick up steam and that this might end up taking over?
Not at that time. And I only say that because yes, we did this monumental album with a legendary producer, and the album was incredible. It sounded great, all of that stuff, but it was still a very small label, and the plan was sort of like, like we'll press like 5,000 copies and, 10,000 copies, and that'll be it, because that was sort of the scope of what NG Records was doing. They weren't a huge label. But then something happened sort of in the midst of all of that, which is a label called Artemis Records, who was sort of this like independent label, but like the brainchild of like Danny Goldberg and like Daniel Glass. They formed this label, and then they bought up NG Records. And so the employees of NG were sort of amalgamated into Artemis, and it became Artemis Records. And then that's when things started to become real, like real. Because, those are big names. Again, when I'm, 17 years old, I'm like, I don't know who, I know who Danny Goldberg is, but like, it didn't register like, who, like how big this actually was, Right. You're like, oh, this guy managed Nirvana, but like, okay, like I'm sitting down and having lunch with him in New York at his office, it just didn't register. Very strange. But yeah, so once that merger buy-up happened, that's when things started to become a bit more real. These were veterans of the music industry, and they were all putting their brain power and their money power together to like, just like, I don't know, make cool shit happen. And, they ended up signing a lot of like their friends and stuff like that. I think Warren Zevon was like on the label and stuff, and but it just so happened that we were sort of in the midst of that, and we were preparing to put out our very first album on a label that ended up with bigger distribution, and so we sort of kind of got bumped up.
Can you imagine if you had done that album a year before and it was just on NG Records without the buyout happening? Right place, right time, right?
I know it is. And, over the years, and even at that time, we got a lot of blowback. We got a lot of angry, jealous people. We got a lot, like we even got death threats and stuff. People sending like hate mail to our Hotmail account run by the band. And, saying a lot of awful things, saying that, we didn't deserve what we were getting. We weren't talented, all of these awful things, worse stuff than that too. But, like a lot of the way that everything aligned, the stars aligned, like that's not lost on me. I know that all of these things, they happened the way they did. And that's why I'm here. I know, like, we're not the best band in the world, I understand that. I know, like, my limitations as a human, as a musician, and all of those things. But that doesn't discredit the hard work that we've sort of put into it, and the things that are intangible that the band represents as well, I think. But yeah, it was a real strange time. And everything just sort of happened the way that it did. I could certainly maybe like conceive of what my life would have been like, but I like to think that this was my path all along.
I believe that. Yeah, this is always what you were supposed to have been doing, and it has happened exactly the way it's always supposed to have happened.
I mean, there's no other explanation. You know what I mean? Like, even the fact that like people care again about Kittie, like it's still like it's
So this new team with Artemis, they take your record and they release it, and they've got great distribution. What starts happening now?
Yeah, so
does it start selling like crazy, or is it a slow build?
There's like, we'll have to like back it up, because like there were actually 2 other releases of Spit before it came out in January of 2000. So from what I can recall, September 1999, we were going to release the album first. And that was around the time that Tanya left the band. So we ended up needing to do some alterations to that. So it was released, and then it was like, no, we're done. But someone from K-Rock in New York got a hold of Brackish and started playing the song, and it started charting, and there was like a big panic. So it was like September, and then we were going to do November. And then it ended up like for the November release, I think that we ended up having to, it started charting and people were going nuts. Like it was like like phones were lighting up, like, and so then they pulled the album again, and then for a more proper release in January. So it was like holding the bull in the cage, and it was like, it needs to get out. But then it's like, we're not ready because clearly the song is going to do something. So they wanted to have a bit more time for like a bit more of a proper setup. Mm-hmm. And in that time, we did a music video. And that was, we did the music video for Brackish at CMJ, which was, I think that would have been November of 99. And we just had like a free show. We're like, come on out. And I think it was like part of the, like part of the whole like showcase. And we were on a show with like, I think Orange 9mm and like Biohazard or something like that. And we were like the first band on, but then we had our camera crews there to like record and everything like that.
Oh, cool.
We played Brackish twice because we were like, we need the, like we played it at the beginning and played it again. I think it was weird.
Yeah, but you needed all that extra footage in which to edit something together.
Yeah, exactly. And, it was wild. Like we had like our own, like wardrobe people and makeup, and like they spray painted me with like, they airbrushed me all white. So I looked like a mannequin, like just wild stuff. We were just there for it. We were so excited. And at that point we were like, just like, yeah, okay, this is it. Like, this is life. People are into it. And the album hadn't come out yet, but there were Kittie fans that were at that show. And so it sort of was like, things were gearing up to be really quite crazy.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. And then the album gets released, and is this the album that goes and sells 2 million units, or is it collectively all your 6 albums have added up to? So
I think tangibly, like tangible copies, Spit was it was certified gold. Collectively, all of our albums have tangible sales of 2 million. I don't know what the streams are equal to these days or whatever, but yeah, like right out of the gate, Spit was wild. People, Brackish was everywhere. Our very first tour that we did, we're invited to be the first band on the Slipknot tour that January. So the album came out, I think 2 or 3 shows into that tour, I think. And it was our very first like real tour experience.
Opening for Slipknot. That's crazy.
It was crazy. And it was at a time when they were still touring on their first album, but these were like their very like first big headlining shows. Because that album came out like the year before, I believe. And so, yeah, it was just like the energy of these shows. Like kids were like hanging from the rafters and jumping from balconies, and like the fire marshal was getting called. Like these were the kinds of like Slipknot shows that are like of legend now. There was a lot of, it was out of control a lot of times.
Things are more corporate now, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they're so big that like, they're playing on like, festival stages and arenas and stuff like that. Like these were, like 1,000 capacity venues, 1,200. So, small clubs and theaters and stuff. And it was, it was like bursting at the seams basically. And so that was our first, real like national touring experience. Like we did a 2-week tour the summer before, I think. And we played like Milwaukee Metal Fest and a few shows with a band called Skin Lab. So like we kind of, knew the drill or whatever, but like this was on another level, as far as attendance and whatnot, and getting out in front of this new audience for the very first time was unbelievable. Like we were the first band on, and a lot of people were like, nudging each other, girls or whatever. But then we just did, we did, and people were impressed. And yeah, that started it all. You know, the next tour we did was Seven Dust, and then we went to Europe with Slipknot again. And then we got the call. I can't exactly remember when, but we got a call. I remember we were sitting around a dinner table after like one of the tours we've been home, from Sharon Osbourne. And my dad was like, "Do you guys want to do the Ozfest?" And we were like, "What's that?"
Your dad must have just been beside himself.
Yeah, like, okay, like we'll do that. I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Like growing up in Canada, we just, we had much music. We didn't have MTV. We didn't know who any of these people were. Like a lot of the stuff was kind of still new, and Ozfest never really came to Canada. They never had Toronto dates or anything. So we were very much like, I don't know what that is. But we knew it was a big deal, and we did say yes. And that summer was one of the coolest summers.
Was Ozfest sort of one massive show, or was it a tour that went across?
Ozfest was a 2-month touring festival, and they had a full festival billing for 2 months. Basically, it was all of July and all of August. All around the United States. And it was, I think Godsmack played, Pantera headlined, Ozzy headlined that year. Queens of the Stone Age played, like Disturbed, Soulfly, Us, Incubus, all kinds of bands. Like it was huge. And we were a part of it. And it was wild times.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this. Going from the band where the all the electricity is turned off on you and your high school show, to going and playing in Ozfest within a very short amount of time. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind. It just continued to get bigger and bigger. And, like I said before, it's a strange feeling to sort of be in the middle of it all and not really realizing, the impact of the things that you're doing on the scale that you're doing them at. Like, yeah, like we were getting up and playing in front of like thousands of people or whatever, but like, it's like at that point, it's like moments like, doing a meet and greet and like having a girl like cry to meet you. Like those are the things that make it real. And like those moments, and at Ozfest, I think in particular, was when it was like real for me. Like that it was like the oh shit moment, like people were just really into it, and the shows were great. They were the weather was so hot, it was awful, but we made it work. But yeah, it was like we've always been like pretty easygoing and accessible, when it comes to like, meeting people and fans and whatnot. But the Ozfest, I think it was the turning point for me where I was like, wow, okay, like it's really something. It's big.
How has the metal scene changed since those days? Is it more, do you find that there's more groups that are all female or female led, or like has that whole world sort of changed a little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we in the industry have made a lot of leaps and bounds as far as metal bands that include women in, as singers. A lot more of that for sure. It's definitely a lot more accepted, and there are a lot of really incredible metal vocalists that are women that are fronting bands these days, but also women that are playing instruments, and just all female metal bands as well. Like it's really awesome to see. I know that it's a kind of a loaded question because it's like, are we there yet? The answer is no. But we're getting there. right? And there's a lot of really amazing female representation in metal. A lot of really fucking talented women that are out there, living those experiences still every day. We've all got our stories. I'd love to have a big meetup one day. But it's nice to see that there is some progress. There's some change in that. Like, from, I think on the Ozfest, we were the only female performers on the entire festival. And now, there's a lot more inclusion, which is always nice to see when it comes to like festivals and shows and stuff.
And there's probably no longer the whole, people nudging the person beside saying, hey, look at there's females up on stage. That's probably a thing of the past, hopefully.
I don't think so. I don't know. I still think that there are people like that. And that's okay, because when we get up there and we do what we do, usually, they see it for what it is. And their minds will be changed.
Amazing. So not just that one record, you have 6 records in total. How did the music change over that span of time from album to album?
Oh gosh. Well, yeah. So, I mean, like, I think in going back to what I sort of talked about at the very beginning of our conversation, like Spit sort of encapsulates this like really magical point in time for the band. We were young. We were really not very polished as musicians, but we just weren't really like, schooled with like the industry and things like that. And it's just got a very certain vibe to it. I think a lot of times people throw it into the nu metal category, because that was a lot of what we were listening to at the time. And, the bands that were influencing us and our music, we sort of fit into that as well. But really only that album, I think, is one that could be considered nu metal for us. And it is a very different album than a lot of the other offerings that Kittie has put out over the years. After we, were done with the first album cycle, it was time to write a new album. And I feel like I was just really pissed off and bitter. I had a lot of rage and stuff about, just experiences in the industry and a lot of things like that. And for me, I felt like being, again, defying what's expected of me and whatnot was the way that I was going to go forward. And so we wrote Oracle, which is it's a really heavy album. Garth again produced the album and recorded with us at EMAX Studios in London. And it's just like a really pissed and defiant album. I think a lot of people were hoping and expecting that, probably even the label were hoping and expecting that, we'd do more single stuff and whatever. And, what I always wanted is a pretty single-y song, but, the whole album in general is like the opposite of what Spit was. And I think it's just kind of to prove a point, At that point, I was just sick of people, expecting me to, look a certain way, act a certain way, whatever. So I was like, well, let's write this really pissed album and not care really about like what I looked like or anything like that. So that was sort of like an act of defiance in general, the entire album. And from that point on, I mean, like we had gone through a lot of lineup changes. I feel like we really started to settle when Tara joined the band, to be honest. She's been with Kittie since 2005. That's a long time. And she has brought a consistency, to the band, other than like my sister and I, for that duration of time, for that length of time. Like a lot of people are like, they equate, the first album lineup to, like the band or whatever, and that everybody else is a new member. But it's like, Tara's been in the band for like 20 something. It's like 20 years almost. Like it's a long time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we've wrote a lot of really great albums together. I think musically, Oracle was this act of defiance, and then moving to our next album, Until the End, that was very much a band sort of in flux. At the time, there was a breakdown with ourselves and the record label. Things were not going well, and there was a lot of legal stuff and whatnot that you can Google. We put out the album. We had a new bass player at the time. And then everything kind of just fell apart, and it was just Mercedes and I again. And that was when, we were like, we need to find some new girls, and Tara was one of them, and Trish Doan as well, another girl from the area in London, joined the band, and that to me felt sort of like the new era of Kittie. Like a rebirth, if you will. And like, for me, that's like, I see it as like the before and the after, that's the point where I think we have been reborn, and we continue with who we are as the modern Kittie from that point on. And so we did Funeral for Yesterday, which is a harder to find album. We actually released that with an independent label. And then we signed with E1 for the last couple of albums that we did, which are In the Black and I Failed You, which I think are like two of the best albums that we've done. Like, musically speaking, I think we've definitely sort of just settled into this modern metal sort of in between, like there are some elements of like who we used to be, but there's a lot of evolution. And I mean, a lot of that credit obviously goes to Tara because like of her abilities. She's a really great guitar player. She brings a lot of different ideas and, melodic takes on things. I think she's sort of like the magic sprinkles on top of everything, right?
She does it all with such a nice attitude, like just the kindest soul and most amazing musician. Yeah, she's incredible.
Absolutely. And like we're lucky to have her. And so, like she is a very much a big part of the evolution of the modern Kittie.
Now, speaking of the evolution of the modern Kittie, I'm so curious to know about the new music that's coming out. Can you talk anything about that? Can you say like when we can expect to hear some new Kittie, or what are the plans?
Yeah, I can't really give too much away, but like I definitely think that 2024 will be our year. It'll be the year. And we did play one new song at a couple of shows that we just did recently. We played Louder Than Life in Louisville, Kentucky, and we also played Sick New World earlier this year. And we played a new song. It's called Vultures. It's like one of the first new songs that we've written in a long time, and so we were really excited to play it. So yeah, like I mean, new music is happening. We're doing stuff.
I love that.
Not much more I can say on that.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. I'll take whatever you can give, but that's great. I'm excited that new music is happening and that the story of the band continues, and may it always continue, and keep releasing new music, because what you do is absolutely incredible. It's really amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, like we're just excited to be able to have the opportunity to do this again. Like I said, like it's been well over 10 years since we released anything new, and for that whole decade, we weren't really sure what, if anything, would ever happen with Kittie again. I know that for me, it's very much a part of my identity of who I am, regardless of whether or not the band is active or not. But it is a very nice surprise to feel wanted again, and to be invited to some of these really great festivals, and to see a new generation eager to hear what we still have to say. So it's invigorating, and definitely something that I didn't ever think that we would do again. And so every moment of this opportunity, of this ability to to create again is I'm savoring it. It's great. I the good and the bad. There's a lot of stress involved too, because you got deadlines and all this stuff, and creativity takes time. But I I love it. Like I couldn't have asked for uh, anything more.
I love that. I love that you love it. I love that you feel like this is what you were meant to do. I believe that this is what you were meant to do as well, that you were always supposed to do this and that you absolutely love it. Can you imagine the opposite? Just being in a job that you can't stand and,
Yeah,
all of
well, I
that.
mean, sometimes you got to make concessions in life or whatever, but like, we all do, or most of us do, all have like normal day jobs too, because it was like, oh, well, Kittie's not, gonna be it forever. But this whole resurgence and everything like that has sort of, put shed a big spotlight on how important this band is to us and to other people as well. And why not, when we have this opportunity, to take it? It may not last forever, and I'm okay with that too. I've been to the other side, and I'm okay with it. But this is really, really cool, and I'm really excited for the future.
While it's here, run with it,
Yeah,
with it, rock with it. Right.
that's it.
Yeah. I want to be respectful of your time. I am curious just if you could just touch really, really quickly on your podcast, because I think it's such an awesome thing that you do. The Witch Finger Horror Podcast. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Witches and I have not done an episode in a very long time, and it's still questionable whether or not we ever will. But for a very long and very good run that we had, we were three friends that got together and reviewed really awful 80s horror movies. And usually we did it while we had a few drinks. And, we covered trivia and, I guess the actors and whatnot, all sort of while watching and reviewing in real time. And it is a lot of fun. It's definitely eye-opening, I would say. It's not a very let's speak calmly into the microphone type podcast. We're definitely a really animated bunch, and but it just sort of shows our enthusiasm for the movies and for that the whole thing that goes with horror movies, because there's a lot of silliness that is also a part of them, bad effects and all that stuff. So we really, really enjoyed doing it. And you can check us out if you search for Witch Finger Horror Podcast on Google. All 50 something episodes are up, and you can check it out on YouTube. I think we're on Spotify as well.
That's awesome.
Off our website. Yeah.
Awesome. Long live the 80s horror movies.
Yes.
That's great. Yes. Morgan, just one last thing.
Of course.
If I could get you to, part of this podcast is being, I want this to be an inspiration to the next generation of females, or those that identify as female, that are coming up and want to be in the music industry, or want to follow this music dream of theirs, or they want to get into the music business, or anything to do with music at all. Do you have any words of advice for someone who's thinking about getting into this?
Oh gosh. This is always a really difficult question, because I think everyone's path to get to where they want to be in life is going to be different. It's like, if you want to get into production, do you take courses? Do you go to seminars, sort of thing? I don't think there's necessarily a handbook for achieving your goals specifically with all these steps. However, I do think that there's, from speaking from my own experience, an attitude that you have to have. And for me, it was always to be defiant in the face of those that tell you that you can't, that you shouldn't, that you're not accepted, you don't belong, because you are and you can, and there is a place where you do belong. It might not just be with those people that are telling you no. And so for me, we were at various stages of our career, told those things and said, well, we won't play you on the radio because this, that, the other, or, you can't do this because you're a woman, or da 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 da. And there is always going to be another path. It may not be the path of least resistance, but sometimes you are the one that has to walk that path. And in doing so, you've created a way that's a little easier for someone behind you. And I like to think that that's what Kittie has done, for women, whether or not we set out to do it at the time. We certainly had no idea that the music that we made, even, when we were teenagers, was going to continue to have an impact on people the way that it does today. But sometimes just being is enough to inspire someone else. Just existing is inspiring enough to someone else for them to be empowered to do the things that they want to do. So it's like, you never know who you're helping with the actions that you take or the things that you do. But if you're doing them, in good faith, and you're doing them because you believe it's right, then I think that's all you can ask for. It will come to you.
Yeah, you're leading by example, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're doing a great job. You're doing a great
Thanks. We're
service.
trying.
No, it's so inspiring. It's just, I love meeting anybody who really just followed what was in their heart, just the things that really were speaking to them when they would go to sleep at night, when they wake up in the morning, when they go throughout the day. Just what is whispering to you? What's that thing? And did you follow it? Yes, you did. And did you rock it? Yes, you did. Are you still rocking it? Yes, you are. Are you inspiring others that are coming up behind you? Yes, you are. It's all incredible. And it's my absolute honor and privilege to speak with you on this podcast about this. And I thank you for your time, Morgan. This has been really, really great, really inspiring for me. And I hope for anybody else who's been listening to this podcast as well.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time as well. And thanks for anyone who's listening. I hope our story and anything I've had to say has been helpful, I guess. I love, knowing that what we've done has inspired. So awesome.
That's great. I can't wait to hear the new music as well. I'm going to crank it in the car super loud and break some windows.
Yes. It's going to be a year.
Cool. I look forward to seeing it unfold.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Morgan. All the best.
Cheers. You as well.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Stay tuned for the next episode of Women in the Music Industry, coming soon. Let's embark on this incredible journey together, celebrating the women who are reshaping the music business one note at a time. If you enjoyed hearing this podcast, please take a moment and give it a like, a rating, or a follow. Your support helps immensely. We'll see you next time.